Right now, 3 names are all that's left standing in the Thomas family, and by the time this episode is over, that number might drop even further. Power Book 3 Raising Kanan Season 5 Episode 8 The series finale just aired, and if you thought Episode 7 was brutal, nothing could have prepared you for what happens when Kanan Stark and his mother finally stand face to face for the last time. After 5 seasons of betrayal, bloodshed, and a mother-son relationship that has been unraveling since day one, this is it. This is the episode that decides who survives the fall of Southside Queens, and honestly, after everything that happened last week, I don't think anyone walks away from this clean. Let's go back for a second because you need to understand exactly how broken this family was heading into the finale. By the end of Episode 7, titled Penultimate means second to last, Rack had already lost almost everyone who used to have her back. Flossie walked away the moment she found out what Kanan had done. Pino cut ties right along with her. Stefano was circling like a vulture, just waiting for his moment to strike. And then Kanan did the unthinkable. He confronted his own Uncle Marvin, the man who spent the entire final season trying to become someone better, a better father, a better brother, honestly just a better person overall, and he gunned him down inside a church. Let that sink in for a second. Not on the street, not in some abandoned warehouse, but inside a church, the one place that's supposed to mean something. That's not just murder, that's a statement. That's Kanan telling the entire Power universe that there is nothing left in him that hesitates anymore. So going into the finale, only 3 Thomases remain standing. Rack, Kanan, and Jukebox. 3 people who used to be family, now circling each other like strangers who happen to share blood. And according to everything the show has been building toward, Rack walks into this finale having just found out that her own son took out her brother. Think about that. This is a woman who has survived wars with the Italians, betrayal from her own crew, and literal gunfights. But the one thing that might actually break her is the truth about what Kanan has become. With her empire basically burned to the ground and almost nobody left to trust, Rack has nothing left to lose. And when a person like Rack has nothing left to lose, that's when things get dangerous for everyone around her, especially her own son. Now here's where it gets personal, because showrunner Sasha Penn has been extremely upfront about what this final season was building toward. He's called it exceptionally intense, action-packed, and said the stakes for Kanan and the entire Thomas family have never been higher. That's not just marketing talk. That's a warning. And Shameik Moore, who plays Breeze, has echoed that same energy, describing the ending as explosive and, in his words, a satisfying send-off for the fans who have been here since Season 1. But satisfying doesn't always mean happy. In this universe, satisfying usually means devastating. What makes this finale hit so much harder than any other episode in the series is that we already know where Kanan ends up. If you've watched the original Power series, you already know the man Kanan Stark eventually becomes. Cold. Calculated. Someone who is capable of killing people he actually loves. So when we say this finale decides who Kanan really is, we're not talking about some random side character. We're talking about the origin story of a man we've already watched commit unthinkable acts years down the line. Every choice he makes in this final episode isn't just plot. It's the missing piece that finally explains how a scared kid, who just wanted to make his mother proud back in Season 1, turned into someone capable of walking into a church and shooting his own uncle without blinking. And that's exactly why this episode matters so much, because it's not just closing out Raising Kanan, it's opening the door directly into Power Origins, the next chapter of this entire universe. Starz has already confirmed that Mackay Curtis will continue playing Kanan in the new spin-off, alongside a young Ghost and a young Tommy, and that casting alone tells you everything about how this finale is designed to connect. This isn't just an ending, it's a bridge. And whatever happens between Kanan, Rack, and Jukebox in these final moments is going to define exactly what kind of man walks into that next series. So if you're ready, let's break down exactly what happened piece by piece, because trust me, once you see how this ends, you are not going to see Kanan Stark the same way ever again. Once the finale actually gets going, it becomes clear almost immediately that there is no version of this story where everyone survives. Rack now knows the truth about Marvin, and unlike every other time in this series where she managed to hold her emotions together, this time something in her finally breaks. For 5 seasons we watched Rack play chess while everyone else played checkers. She always had a plan, always had leverage, always had someone she could turn against someone else to protect herself. But by the time the finale opens, she doesn't have that luxury anymore. Her brothers are dead. Her allies are gone. The only family she has left standing in front of her is the same son who has been slowly destroying everything she built. And that changes everything about how this final confrontation plays out, because a desperate Rack is a completely different threat than the calculated queenpin we met back in Season 1. Now let's talk about Kanan, because this is where the finale really shows its hand. Remember how emotionless he looked at Marvin's funeral, standing right beside the casket, completely stone-faced while everyone around him was falling apart. That wasn't just grief or the lack of it. That was Kanan showing us exactly who he has become. This is a version of him that has learned how to compartmentalize violence, how to separate what he's done from who he tells himself he is. And that mindset becomes the most important thing driving him into this final showdown with his mother. Because deep down, Kanan doesn't see killing Marvin as murder. He sees it as a necessary step toward protecting everything he's built with Breeze. And if you've been paying attention to how his character has evolved, you already know that Kanan will justify almost anything if it means staying on top. That's exactly why the confrontation between Kanan and Rack hits so differently than any fight they've had before. This isn't two people arguing about loyalty or business decisions anymore. This is a mother staring at the son she raised, realizing that the person standing in front of her isn't a kid who made bad choices. He's someone who has fully become the monster she always feared he might turn into. And for Kanan, this is the moment where every excuse runs out. He can't blame Snaps. He can't blame Pop. He can't blame Unique. There's no one left to point the finger at except himself. When it's just the two of them, face to face with everything they've built and destroyed sitting between them, that's when the real truth comes out, and honestly, that's the moment the entire series has been building toward since episode 1. What makes this even more heartbreaking is Jukebox's position in all of this. She has already lost Famous. She's already lost Marvin, the one person in this family who was still trying to keep her emotionally grounded. And now she's forced to watch the two people she loves most in this world, her aunt and her cousin, tear each other apart in the worst way possible. Jukebox has spent this entire final season slowly transforming into someone harder, someone colder, someone closer to the ruthless woman we eventually meet in the original Power series. And if this finale pushes her into choosing a side, whichever side she picks isn't just going to affect her relationship with Rack or Kanan, it's going to permanently define who she becomes moving forward. That's not a small detail. That's character-defining stuff, the kind of moment that explains everything about who she is years later. And here's something a lot of people aren't talking about enough. Breeze's position in all of this becomes just as important as Kanan's. Because remember, Breeze has already started showing hesitation, questioning orders for the first time in the entire series. If Kanan walks into this finale willing to sacrifice his own mother to protect his future, that tells Breeze everything he needs to know about the kind of partner he's dealing with. Loyalty like that isn't comforting, it's terrifying. And if Breeze starts realizing just how far Kanan is willing to go, that could plant the very first seed of distrust between them, the kind of distrust that, years later, becomes exactly why their partnership eventually falls apart in ways we already know from the original Power timeline. Every piece is connecting. Every choice matters. And we are just getting started, because what happens next completely changes how you'll look at Kanan Stark forever. By the time the final confrontation actually happens, there's no more room left for lies. And that's what makes this moment so devastating to watch unfold. Rack stands in front of her son, fully aware of what he's become, and she does something that finally shows us who she really is underneath all that armor she's worn since season 1. Instead of pulling a gun, instead of trying to outmaneuver him one more time, she lets him see her. Really see her. Not the queen pin. Not the woman who built an empire out of nothing. Just a mother who has run out of ways to save her child from himself. And that vulnerability, after 5 seasons of Rack never once letting her guard down, is exactly what makes this scene so gut-wrenching. Because deep down we all know Kanan still loves her. He just loves power more. That internal war inside Kanan is what the entire finale comes down to. Does the boy who once wanted nothing more than to make his mother proud still exist somewhere underneath everything he's done? Or has that version of him been completely erased by every death, every betrayal, every moment where he chose himself over everyone else? Watching him stand there, gun in hand, staring at the woman who raised him, you can feel the weight of every episode leading up to this single moment. This is the line the show has been walking toward since day 1. The exact point where the boy from Season 1 officially disappears and the man from Power fully takes his place. And however that final decision plays out, it confirms something we've suspected for a while now, that Kanan was never destined to be the hero of this story. He was always destined to become exactly what the original Power series already showed us. Someone who has learned that loyalty is only useful until it becomes inconvenient. What makes this finale land so hard isn't just what happens to Rack. It's what happens to everyone left standing afterward. Jukebox has to live with the reality of what her family has become. And if this moment pushes her even further away from softness and even further toward the version of herself we eventually meet in the original series, then Marvin's death and everything that came after it wasn't just tragic, it was transformational. Every person Kanan destroys on his way to the top doesn't just disappear from the story. They leave a permanent mark on the people who loved them, and Jukebox becomes the clearest example of that ripple effect. She's not just losing family members. She's losing every reason she ever had to stay soft in a world that keeps punishing her for it. And that's exactly why this finale works so well as a bridge into Power Origins. Because now we understand exactly how Kanan Stark becomes the man we already know, calculated, guarded, someone who has learned the hard way that love and loyalty are liabilities in this business. When Power Origins picks up the story with a young Ghost and a young Tommy, we're not just meeting new characters, we're watching Kanan step into the role of mentor, teacher, and eventually betrayer, using every hard lesson this final season taught him. Everything that happened in this finale, every loss, every impossible choice, becomes the foundation for the man who will one day shape two teenagers into legends, only to have one of them turn on him in the end. That's the tragedy of this entire universe. Nobody escapes it clean. Nobody gets a happy ending. Everyone just gets consumed by the same cycle that consumed the people before them.